Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. Of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Connie,
I love it, man.
how are you doing, my friend? I know where you're going to go with this, but oh,
Suey! Woo! Go Hogs! Come on now.
Conrad,
I love them Razorbacks.
look, this is much bigger than Stretcher Jack Hart or Barry Horowitz getting a win or loser Tony Falk giving wrestling analogies. Don't even start with the Vanderbilt and Arkansas on the same level. Not even close. I'm never going to miss an opportunity like this. Bama taken to the woodshed. Commodores put up 40. Goalposts marched not one, not two, but 3 miles right down Broadway, dumped in the Cumberland River, fished out yesterday by Nashville's finest fire department, currently being cut up into 4-inch and 8-inch metal pieces to be sold to pay the fine, my man Conrad. What a weekend of college football to top it off. And rumor has it that the old tricky Nicky Saban was caught watching some game film, smoking a cigar. Is that true, Conrad?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Conrad,
Not there.
I cannot believe you came out with that Arkansas BS.
I had no intentions of doing it, and I certainly didn't plan to remind you that back in 2018, Vanderbilt ran it all up inside Tennessee, 38-13. Like that's not supposed to happen. How did that happen? And how did it happen the year prior? In the year prior, like why does it keep happening?
Don't even put it on comparative schedules. Oh, Saban, the only place in the SEC that you don't have to worry about crowd noise.
Did you see my tweet there about that?
Yours?
Yeah.
What'd you do? I got to hear it.
They had a tremendous post that recapped what Saban said on game day. And I made sure that I screen grabbed it and posted it because he was talking all kinds of trash about how it's not hard to play in Vanderbilt. And then I wrote in my little part, Brett screwed Brett. Because I honestly could not believe, and I was damn near embarrassed to have to tell my wife, honey, Alabama lost to a goddamn hospital today. I told her, hey, listen, I'm going to go. I hadn't been home for a while. I'm going to go hang out with Dad and watch the game with Dad. She goes, oh, you got to. I said, well, it's Vandy. I'll be home by halftime. So we'll still be able to do stuff this afternoon. So I pull in hours later, and she's like, what's going on? I thought you were going to be here at so-and-so. We were going to do such and such. And I said, honey, I know this is hard to believe, but Alabama just lost to a hospital. That's where we are. It's like the head coach in Revenge of the Nerds. You guys just lost to a bunch of nerds. How does it happen, Jeff?
That's why they play the ball game. That's why they play the ball game. I loved it, man. And for you non-college football fans that are tuning into my world, you're going to hear a fantastic episode on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. There's pages and pages and pages of notes today. I don't think we'll get a third of the way through it. But just bear with us because this has not happened since
40 years, 84.
Before I started wrestling, if that just throws it into context.
Before the first WrestleMania, the last time Vandy beat Alabama, there was no such thing as WrestleMania. There were still territory wrestling. Watts was running.
We're going to get into some Watts and Crockett shows and all kinds of Dusty. And I forgot about the Dusty Bill Dundee main event in Memphis that absolutely torpedoed, but we'll have fun with that. But Conrad, That's why they play the game, man. I'm just in football, NFL. Our friends across the pond, the Premier League and Fulham's obviously my team now that I follow. But, the game of, we'll call it soccer and American football. And I know they're diehards, and I get it. I totally get it. But football is just that perfectly made sport for TV. Couple of plays, take a commercial break, couple of plays, change your hand, back and forth, get down to the last 2 or 3 minutes. It's like the entire, whether it's college or pro, Connie, why don't they run the 2-minute offense for all 4 quarters? It sure would be exciting, but damn, Cowboys got them a win last night. Titans had a good weekend. We had a bye week. Vols, I'm telling you, Conrad, third Saturday in October may be the biggest Alabama-Tennessee game as far as stakes. God almighty.
Yeah, because now it's like no one can lose. Everybody acts like, oh, with the new 12-team playoff, wins and losses don't matter as much.
Oh, boy.
Do now. They do now.
When you drop, hey, Arkansas, back to coaching, they got a coaching staff.
Yeah, they do.
Petrino may not be able to ride a motorcycle, but I can't either, but he can damn sure coach, man.
I love that you had to work that in. I love that you had to work that in. Hey, listen, we're sorry we're talking about football, but if you are an American college football fan, you know what a big doggone deal it was when Alabama loses as number 1 to an unranked team. And even after beating Alabama, they're still unranked, but it is the biggest win in Vanderbilt school history, probably the biggest loss in Alabama history. And Jeff, this sounds like it's made out of a movie. It doesn't even feel real. The fans, all 30 of them, stormed the field and tore down the goalpost and then carried it nearly 3 miles down Broadway, which is the honky-tonk district, the where all the tourism is in all of Nashville.
It's 6 lanes, folks.
And threw it in the doggone river.
It's 6 lanes from Midtown, Uptown, whatever you want to go. Yeah, 3 miles of not country road. This is 3 miles in the middle of Nashville. You can't get any more high traffic areas. It's hard to, whatever city in America you want to pick out, there's certainly a main street, but Broadway is where all the honky tonks are. But where it started and how it came through, kudos to those guys. I'd say they had a few adult beverages rolling in them, and now there's stories about, I touched the goalpost as it came down, and this coach from the Preds touched it. There's all kind of posts on X and fun stuff, and they toss it in the dadgum Cumberland River, which I wonder what Einstein figured that out. Did they suggest it actually on the field? Hey, let's take this thing. I don't know, but it got down there, and then the local news has a break-in of the fire department fishing it out. And then, Conrad, do you like that? We have our text exchange here, me and Connie. The first text of the day was that auction of auction off 4 and 8.
They're auctioning off pieces of that set of goalposts, the game balls, the corner pylons for the touchdowns. I mean, for the end zones. It's unbelievable how quickly they monetized it. And in fairness, they may have needed to, because they got $100,000 fine for that. And I would say, well worth it. What a big moment it is in football history. I'm so happy for Vanderbilt. My dad was losing his mind, as you may imagine, but I was like, Dad, on some level, this is a movie. This is a feel-good moment. We're playing with house money. We've had such a great team since 2009 and won so many championships. Beating Vanderbilt wouldn't even be on our radar today, but it is going to make that quarterback, he's a made man in Nashville forever.
And his stock is incredibly climbing. But Connie, I was doing cardio about 2 hours ago thinking about this podcast and okay, we're going to talk college. How can we not talk college football and have fun with it? But man, oh man, back to our wrestling, my world vibe. What an emotional connection, huh? The Alabama fans in the audience.
Yes.
That they got, the SEC network did a good job. And they stuck with it after the game and all of that. Conrad, not often do I really think, man, I want to call Larry. And just this is when I thought they were going to win. Larry, do you realize you almost got beat by the Commodores? And then when it happened, I said, I better not text Connie to get his number. I don't think he's doing real well at this time. What a weekend. What a game.
It was an incredible game. I'm so glad that Vandy got the win and has this as a part of their history. It was a major moment. And how about this? It was a real win for the SEC network. I mean, I know we're talking about college sports, but if you're a wrestling fan, you'll be able to follow along with this piece. They usually put the C show, the C games on the SEC network.
For sure.
It's never the high profile games, the best ranked teams, the best matchups. They kind of get the leftovers.
I'd go as far as maybe not a C, because C goes to ESPN2 because it's D&E. It's bottom of the barrel.
But they had Alabama number 1, and everybody thought it would be a jobber match, a squash match.
Exactly what it was designed.
And Barry Horowitz stole the win, and it was fantastic. And by the way, you'll like this. The guy doing color commentary is one of my very best friends, Cole Kubelik. Years ago, I was even in his wedding. We're just tight.
Oh, I didn't even he was calling?
He's on color. So as soon as Dad and I turn the game on and we see Cole, I text Cole, and I'm like, dude, Dad and I popped so big. I'm so thankful and so glad you're finally getting to call an Alabama game. And immediately afterwards, Dad looks at me and says, tell that motherfucker he better never call another Alabama game. If I see him in the booth for an Alabama game, I'm driving to the game wherever I am. I'm kicking his ass. And my dad was furious at Cole. He's convinced it's Cole Kubelik's fault.
Yeah, the jinx of Cole. Cole, don't ever roll into Gunnersfield, my man. You better stay way away. You're going to be wearing a brand new pair of concrete boots. Courtesy of Larry Thompson.
Hey, so we had a little fun talking about college football. I do want to briefly mention, in case you're keeping score at home, the Bengals lost again. Who beats the Bengals?
Everybody beats the Bengals.
Everybody. Joe Burrow out there with his frosted tips, throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns and still leaving, shuffling his feet. King Henry is here. Roll Tide forever. But, of course, we're only doing that for Joe Burrow because we love to bust balls about our buddy Abyss, who we paid tribute to last week. If you haven't already checked it out, I encourage you, go listen to us talk about Abyss and his fabulous TNA career at myworldpod.com. But I'm making that transition here, Jeff, because I got a question, and you and I have not talked about this, and we normally keep up with each other through the week about different wrestling stuff.
I got a lot of feedback on this episode, but go ahead.
Did you see there's another company besides AEW that does premium live events? Did you know that?
I think so.
They had one over the weekend. I don't know if you heard about that.
They got the pretty bird as the logo.
That's right. And you can watch it on that network. I forget what it's called.
It's Pigeons. No,
that's right.
I think Pigeons. I'm close. Peacocks. Okay. Peacocks.
Okay.
My dad used to have a pair of peacocks.
Who?
Jerry W. Jarrett.
Why did he have peacocks?
Why did he? Do you know he also had a pair of white swans with their wings clipped that cost a fortune? And as a high school junior, they would all of a sudden go wandering, and I have to go, I don't know, sometimes half a mile, sometimes a mile, sometimes a little further than that, and go down. Hey, got word the swans are down here, kind of running thing. Connie, getting the old pickup truck. 1, it's humiliating. 2, a swan will beat the freaking hell out of you with their wings to get him in the back of a pickup truck. So yeah, peacock, swans. He was a bit eccentric. Morgan horses that were absolutely beautiful. Anyway, a bit eccentric OJW was. So
why does anybody have a peacock? Just because they think they're pretty to look at?
I guess.
I mean, did he let the peacocks in the house, or did they just roam the yard?
Oh no, they were out on the back, by the barn. Yeah.
I'm just fascinated by this. Anyway, there was a little event over on Peacock over the weekend. Did you see it?
I saw highlights. I did not. You have to remember what was going on Saturday. I would spend Saturday morning in Rome, Georgia with my youngest daughter, and basketball season's about to kick off, and did a team orientation and Georgia Mountain Day and had a good time. And then I got in the car and got to drive home by myself, which I loved, and listening to games. I had one on my phone, one on my iPad, and one on the radio, Connie. So I was rolling along. So no, I did not.
Well, the main event, of course, was a tag team affair, but the opening match was a Hell in a Cell match between a guy who used to work at AEW and Drew McIntyre.
Yep, Nashville
And
wrestling, Drew McIntyre.
I think it's one of the very best cage matches I've ever seen.
Saw the comments on it for sure.
The producer was Abyss.
Shut the front door.
So I'm just saying, as we're heaping praise last week on his in-ring, and you made the statement that the way he's transitioned to being a behind-the-scenes producer, executive, whatever you want to call it, a veteran voice for WWE, the result of his work this past weekend is one of the best cage matches anybody's ever seen. It was brutal. It was amazing. I highly recommend it. I know we don't talk about the other company on here a ton, but I just wanted to throw some flowers on Abyss since we just talked about it last week, Jeff.
Well, I'll say this. Your friend and mine gave me the lowdown after I walked in the door. Because, Conrad, I walked in the door with about 3 or 4 minutes to go of the Bama game. Codes and Karen were in the house and all that. But after the game was over, I don't know. So I think the UT game, whatever, Cody disappeared for a bit as he came out. He gave me the lowdown. He was very impressed. I'll just say that he was into it. Of course, he talked about the staples. And when that photo came out sometime, I don't know if it was yesterday.
Yeah, it was late Saturday night or early Sunday morning.
Yeah, so he showed me that yesterday. Whew. That's some color, my friend. But yeah, he coached or gave it high praise. I'll have to let him know that his man, he loves Abyss. Abyss has always been good to him. So have you chatted with Cody lately?
I have actually. He DM'd me talking shit when Alabama lost.
No. I am going to have to speak to that young man. I certainly hope he would never, but it was polite, right? He just, did he say sympathies or condolences or
no?
Hey, get ready for next week. Don't worry about this. It's a 12-team tournament. I mean, he said niceties, as we say in the South, right?
I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of y'all some frauds, y'all some trash.
Wait, are we talking about Cody Angle, my son?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Karen is a bad influence, man.
Oh, really? This I feel like is something he can't even get in trouble for.
We've already talked about football. Let's put this in the review mirror. On to Abyss.
He can hit you with that 80s PSA when you slam open his door and say, Cody, are you texting my podcast partner talking trash about Alabama losing? He could just hit you with the exact same line from that PSA. I learned it from watching you, Dad.
Oh, my God.
Same thing.
Codes. But anyway, kudos. I didn't know that. I'm glad you dropped that little gem on that. So there is one thing our man Joseph Park can do, and that is think through a professional wrestling match and get the good to better and the better to best. He really is talented at that. He damn sure can't play fantasy football, and he pulls for the worst teams. Steelers got beat. Tips Burrow still holding the clipboard. He's probably, who knows, rooted for Bama. Larry will probably shoot him as well. But he can lay out a wrestling match. I'll give him that. Very good. All kidding aside. Very, very good. I'm happy to hear that. I really am.
Go out of your way to see that match, and you'll get a whole new appreciation for what Abyss does behind the scenes. Speaking of behind the scenes, summerballsummit.com is the place to be. I can't believe this is real. Double J is everywhere, literally everywhere. Monday the 21st through Wednesday the 23rd of this month in West Palm Beach. We're getting everybody together for Summer Ball Summit. You're going to be one of the speakers. Jeff, what aren't you up to these days? Goodness
gracious. Just having a good old time. We got this week alone is super busy. Tuesday, tonight, YouTube, but no, Summer Ball Summit, part of Shoes Baseball, my partner Jamie Toole. Last year we had this in Springfield, Illinois, had a great turnout, but we all get together because I asked Jamie, oh gosh, this was a year and a half ago as he was kind of prepping and planning and really the concept. I said, Jamie, give me the elevator pitch. And I think I actually said something to the effect, not even the elevator pitch. Give it to me just right off top. He said, hey, we'll all get together and figure out how we can make more money. I said, oh, I'm up for that. So it is a bunch of baseball folks, owners, GMs get together and figure out how to emotionally connect with your community, which will translate into some revenue. But no, we have fun. Lots of, personalities. And, wrestling folks, we're going to talk about a huge personality today in the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Of course, Abyss is a unique personality, but baseball has its own personalities, and there's going to be several guest speakers, but a good old time out there. And if you're into baseball, go to Summer Ball Summit. I think that's right, summerballsummit.com.
That's right.
And come on down if you want to figure out how to make your team promotion better.
Summerballsummit.com is your hookup if you want to go see Double J here in a couple of weeks. He'll be limping in after Alabama whoops that ass the weekend before, but just pat him on the back and say it'll get better. Or if he's looking at the final score, just let him know. You can look at it all you want. And
Stop.
Well, it's just going to be like when I dog walked you in Chicago. Now we're going to see the real life version in just a couple of weeks. But
my man Cody let's clarify this. He's flipped on you, Connie, because we are convinced that Casio, when he set the game up, because he was supposed to be like the special guest referee, if you will. He was like like they have on Fox, the guy in the booth. It's really the official that Casio put in a cheat code for you. And when
he did not. I don't even know that exists.
Oh, it exists. Go ask Cody. He put a cheat code into the game. Therefore, I was like, the computer algorithm, I was destined. My flea flicker Hail Mary would not work. And so you were a part of it. You're accessory to it. But Casio put in a cheat code. That's how you beat me. So Cody thinks that. I agree. And let's move on.
Well, just so you know, I'd be glad to whoop the whole family. If you want to line up Jaron, and you want to line up Karen, and you want to line up all those names that start with K or rhyme with Karen, I'll beat them all, and then I'll beat you. You can be the final boss or the preliminary boss. I'll pick them up and put them down as fast as I can. And it's because I'm going to be fueled with protein thanks to Magic Spoon. Oh. Here's the deal, boys and girls. As a kid, I absolutely loved eating cereal. It was a big part of my weekend routine. But as an adult, man, I know I don't need all that sugar. And most cereals don't give us the protein we need. And then my wife found Magic Spoon. It's a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like our childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. And heads up, if you're already a Magic Spoon fan, you're going to love this big news. Magic Spoon has turned their super popular cereal into high protein treats that are light, crispy, and taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are so delicious, they've become my go-to snack. And I think you're going to love the cereal if you haven't tried Magic Spoon, because every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, and there's so many more. And Magic Spoon's brand new treats, they're crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and it's an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are now available in grocery stores with delicious flavors just like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. And marshmallow sounds and tastes just like the ones Mom used to make, except now with protein. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/myworld, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/myworld for $5 off. Magic Spoon. Hold on to the dream.
Throw it in your bag, my man. Got them packed already. I'm headed out west, and I got my bars, as Karen would say. You got your bars packed, honey? Yes, I have my Magic Spoon protein bars packed. It is keeping from eating junk food for me, even when I'm scooting around town. Keep a few Magic Spoon bars on deck so you don't eat junk food.
Really, that's it. I mean, what a great way to describe that, because if you want something that tastes like junk food, but isn't, so it tastes great, but it's got all this protein, you can feel good about it. And that's why Jeff does it. That's why you'll love it. Go right now to magicspoon.com/myworld. Use that promo code MyWorld. You'll get $5 off. Now, I know you heard me say it's on Amazon and in grocery stores, but just between me and you and the fence post, if you buy it on Amazon or grocery stores, that doesn't help the podcast.
Bingo.
So if we're turning you on to Magic Spoon, why don't you just try it? Get yourself $5 off and do it at magicspoon.com/myworld. And I get out of convenience every now and again. If you got to get it at the grocery store, do. But why not get a better deal? Save $5 off and support your favorite podcast by going to magicspoon.com/myworld. You know what I'm saying. Magicspoon.com/myworld. Hey, Jeff, man, this is coming fast. I want to remind everybody tonight is Dynamite. So as you're listening to this, normally we're talking about what's happening on Dynamite tomorrow night. That is not the case. Tonight, Jeff, is Title Tuesday. And my phone just went off over here. I got a text message. I don't know if this is a spoiler. Are you winning the world title tonight on Title Tuesday? Because that's what people are saying.
Shh.
Okay.
Got it. That will be in WhatsApp because those texts are encrypted. So don't ask.
Well, don't miss Title Tuesday. It's a big opportunity. A lot of people are going to be talking about other stuff and what's happening on other channels and tribalism and all that. But I want to remind you, this isn't just a regular Title Tuesday. This is the Go Home Dynamite for a big old pay-per-view happening this weekend. Of course, I'm talking about Wrestle Dream at the Tacoma Dome. This has been one that we've all had circled on our calendars for a long, long time. Boy, in the main event, we've got Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley for the AEW World Title. We're also going to see the Young Bucks and Private Party for the AEW Tag Straps. Jack Perry is going to defend his TNT title against Shibata. Will Ospreay is going to find himself in a three-way dance for the international title with Ricochet and Takeshita. Chris Jericho is going to be challenging Mark Briscoe for the Ring of Honor World Title. Atlantis Jr. is going to be in there with Brian Cage for the ROH title. We've also got the winner of Dr. Britt Baker and Willow Nightingale getting a chance to face Mariah May for the AEW Women's World Title. We'll find out who that opponent is going to be tonight. But the match that was announced over the weekend might be the one I'm looking forward to the most, Jeff. Darby Allin is going to be in there with Brody King. Brody King's been one of my guilty pleasures for a while. What an underrated performer. What an incredible presence he has. What a great storied history these guys have on the independents. Darby Allin, no doubt about it, he's become one of the pillars, somebody on the Mount Rushmore of AEW in these early formative years, a superstar. And this is classic David versus Goliath. That's the match I'm looking forward to the most. But Jeff, you watch wrestling differently than me. What are you looking forward to the most about Wrestle Dream?
You know what? I'll kind of double down, and I think the chemistry that we're going to see. Brody, over the weekend, I was looking at something and came across my iPad, that Atlanta street fight we had with the House of Black, me, Satnam, and Jay back in Atlanta, early part of this year. You know, Brody is deceptively not just big, he's huge. But man, he can move. So that one, but I'm going to go back to Mox and Danielson. You know, at the end of the Chicago All Out pay-per-view and all the controversy and just that whole scenario, and then here we are. I'm curious to see. I don't want to go dive off into inside baseball, but I'm curious to see the cadence, the match flow, the psychology, just how everything rolls out. Brian, as people, listeners of this show know how much I hold him in high regard. But the, I don't call it the story, but just the mindset of coming into this. I'm excited to see this. But just as a fan, I want to sit down and watch. Boom, here come the entrances. All right, boys, let's see what you got. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Conrad. I'm curious as a wrestling fan what kind of match they're going to have.
I can't wait to see it. AEW seemingly always delivers on pay-per-view. I'm sure that's going to be no exception this weekend. Jeff's going to be there, and I'm going to be glued to the television. Wrestle Dream coming your way this weekend, this Saturday from Tacoma. Handful of tickets still on sale. Pick them up at AEWTix.com. That's AEWTix.com. Or do what I'm doing and watch on pay-per-view. I'm still rocking the Triller TV app for all of my AEW pay-per-views. But Jeff, since you and I recorded last week, there's been some big news. AEW TV is here to stay. The renewal information is here. It looks like a 3-year deal with a 4-year option. Dynamite and Collision are going to continue on TBS and TNT, but in the new year, we're going to start to see more AEW content on Max. This is a mega milestone. You got to be excited as a guy who's a wrestling junkie and a business junkie. It's high fives for the whole wrestling industry right now, isn't it, Jeff?
It's going to say for the entire wrestling industry because, gosh, Conrad, on the one hand, I'll sound like a broken record. On the other hand, I'll sound like kind of a giddy kid, if you will. And then on that third hand, just kind of the business thought process in that just how programming, content, the world is consuming things. Me and you are both big business fans, and I think we had that conversation before Amazon got into the NFL business, and they, bought X amount of games and price per game, and how in the world are they gonna, 10 million, 8 million last year? I think it's 7 or 8, then 10, and just the numbers that Amazon's getting, and just how the world of entertainment looks at things. And Max, obviously now they're in the game, and professional wrestling, and we go in both old school, and Crockett the book, which we're going to reference here in a little while. But the lineage of Jim Crockett Promotions, I say also the territory days, and now all of a sudden, it is the lineage from TBS Superstation every Saturday night, and now here we go, the PLEs, if you will, the premium live events or pay-per-views as we roll on Max. It's huge, Conrad. There's no way to really put it into words that several years ago when they launched and I don't call them naysayers, but people, and I'm not saying the tribalism, I'm just saying the and you probably know this stat much better than I do, but a startup company, not wrestling, just startups in any line of business, just the odds are incredibly hard to break through. I mean, monumental hard to break through. So to break through, get a deal now on the streaming platform, got some length, obviously got the revenue coming in, and goes back to professional wrestling. Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, going to be Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday. I mean, 7 nights a week in a lot of ways, not every week, but for the most part, 5 nights a week. That's Conrad. You just kind of look at where the business at, and that's just on, we'll call it cable and now streaming. But the numbers are astounding with professional wrestling. When you put it all into one big batch, it's enormous. So pretty cool to be a part of the industry. And yes, high fives all around for the industry. You said that well.
I'm so happy for AEW. I know that there's a lot of silly tribalism, but I mean, this is great for the people who work in the industry. I mean, AEW has hundreds of employees. It's great for everyone who works in WWE or MLW or TNA or AAA or CMLL or New Japan or anyone who's hoping to advance their career. And I'm not talking about from a fan perspective. I'm talking about the way you view your career and your non-wrestling work life. Hey, man, let's get a better schedule. Let's make some more money. Let's get a promotion, if you will. It's a great thing for the entire industry, and I hope that folks realize and recognize that.
It makes the business better.
Yeah, for everybody.
I mean, it makes the NWA better. It makes I call it. I still want to call it Impact, but it makes TNA better. It makes NWA better. It makes GCW better. It makes West Coast Indies, East Coast Indies, Puerto Rico's having a resurgence. I've got to ask you about something off that online, which would be a fun discussion. But Puerto Rico, obviously, AAA and CMLL and the Japan companies and Rev Pro, just every organization across the board, including, yes, in many ways that are obvious and maybe some not so obvious. This helps the WWE tremendously. Don't ever forget that.
It's huge, and we're glad that it happened. And well, I wish I could say that we're glad something else happened, but since we've recorded, man, there's been some really terrible stuff happened with Hurricane Helene. I don't think when we recorded last week we had all the information that we do now. Goodness gracious,
Oh,
it's terrible. It's awful to see what all they've been going through. And you and I said, hey, you know what? What can we do, if anything, to help? And so what we've decided to do is, since there is no dynamite on Wednesday night, do our own little dynamite here at myworldpod.com. We're doing Double J and Friends, Hurricane Helene Relief. All super chat donations will go to help relief. Go right now to myworldpod.com. Jeff Jarrett is going to subject himself to ask Jeff anything, and we're going to pepper him with all the hard questions. So if you've ever wanted to ask Jeff Jarrett anything at all, jump on right now at myworldpod.com, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell. And this Wednesday, tomorrow night, October 9th, when you would normally be turning on AEW Dynamite at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, be at myworldpod.com. Jeff Jarrett and Friends will be live. And I want to repeat that. All super chat donations will go to help relief. So, no, I'm not saying you have to, give Jeff Jarrett $20 to ask him a question. But I am saying if you give Jeff Jarrett $20 to ask him a question, 100% of that goes directly to the relief efforts for Hurricane Helene. We don't know how to do a fundraiser better than that. It's interactive. You get a fun experience, and you never know who's going to show up because it's billed, Jeff, as Double J and Friends. What could that mean?
Yeah, I'm working on it right all the way up till showtime. All that came together. But, Conrad, all kidding aside, when we were kicking around the idea, I go back to last Saturday. Yeah. I was at a breakfast meeting, Conrad, and a buddy of mine looked down at his phone, and he had been at a diner all up in East Tennessee. And anyway, he traveled and has got friends up there, and he had spent the better part of 2 weeks between the Carolinas, Virginia, and Tennessee, kind of quasi, it's a work route, but it's like his hobby. That's it regardless. But he was at a diner and he got a text, Conrad, and he said, last Saturday morning, I was sitting at this diner and it no longer exists.
Wow.
And I just was like, wow. He said, yeah, the entire area washed away. And that, man, Mother Nature, something else, pal. So I am grateful that me and you have the opportunity to do a teeny tiny part. If more than anything, we will, when the show comes on, and let other folks, if you don't want to donate through us, but make it awareness, and maybe you guys, and maybe through Instagram and X and Facebook and all of our social platforms. Just those guys got a long road, a big time long road. They just do got a long road ahead of them to rebuild. And of course, the loss of life, you just can't really rebuild at times. You just got to readjust and navigate your way through. So thoughts and prayers to all of those folks over there. I think so many people, when it first happened, just didn't have a clue the devastation. So, Connie, I'm proud of our ad-free team and myworldpod.com for getting this opportunity put together. And I'm looking forward to bring them on, man. Bring all the questions. Ask Jeff anything.
We're going to be having some fun. It happens at myworldpod.com. It's this Wednesday when you would normally be tuning into Dynamite. Go to myworldpod.com. It's Double J and Friends, Hurricane Helene Relief. As a reminder, all of the donations, all the super chat stuff will go directly to help relief. And we're gonna have some fun ways for you to get Jeff Jarrett autographed 8x10s and what have you, and some surprise and some giveaways. But I want you to spread the word, because again, this is 100%. We're not selling you anything here. This is totally free. That I guess I'm saying that because Jeff, you and I have done live shows before where folks could come out to Jimmy's Famous Seafood or what have you, and they're going to see some stories, and we're going to have some surprise guests, and we're going to have some fun. And it's live and interactive, and folks get to ask questions. Well, we're doing that now where you don't have to leave your couch. Just where you would normally be watching AEW Dynamite in the comfort of your own home. Join us this Wednesday, myworldpod.com. It'll be Double J and Friends, and 100% of the revenue created is going to go directly to Hurricane Helene relief. And we're going to be looking for those super chats, Jeff. This is going to be fun. I can't wait to see what superstars you've got up your sleeve.
We're going to have fun. We're absolutely going to have some fun.
Before we get going on our topic today, which is Dusty Rhodes, I want to briefly get everybody caught up. Jeff Jarrett is in the best shape of his life. Would you disagree with that?
No.
And a large part of that is because Jeff has been learning, and Jeff has gotten better, and Jeff is more in tune with his body than ever before. Would you agree with that?
Well, look at my shirt. I'll say 100%. Yes.
Well, I thought you were going to lift it up and show us your abs, and I was going to say, let's go to a one shot.
No.
Hey, what we're doing here is we're talking about our friends at Lumen.
Yep.
Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs. And then it even gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even your stress management. Now, all you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you'll know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. Here's why metabolic health matters. Your metabolism, think of it as like your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going, because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does. Optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health with each breath. And these recommendations from Lumen are designed to help you improve your pre and post-workout fueling for better performance and recovery, so you can power through the tough workouts and add on muscle mass. Let me give you some real life examples. Megan has a doctor friend who's lost more than 40 pounds thanks to Lumen. Think about that. A doctor knows about carbs and fats and metabolisms and what he should do or shouldn't do. Or did he? He knew what the book said. He knew what the hard and fast rule, the rule of thumb is, but he didn't know exactly what was going on with his own body. But he's getting real-time insights now. Now, Megan painted a picture for me. It's almost like that 50 Cent music video back in the day where you've got a doctor and there's a kid on a treadmill running with a mask, and he's got all these nodules hooked up, and the doctor's walking around him with a clipboard taking notes. You used to have to set an appointment and go into the doctor's office and get hooked up with all this stuff and then figure out what's going on. Now you don't have to do that. There's a little handheld device you can keep in your backpack or in your purse or on your nightstand or at your desk, and you can know in real time exactly what's going on. A friend of ours has been doing 18-hour fasts for quite a while. What they learned thanks to Lumen is they didn't need to fast more than like 10 and a half or 11 hours, because if it went past the 12-hour mark, their body, not everybody's body, but their body started to say, hey, what's going on? We haven't got anything in 12 hours. And your body starts to work against you, and it starts to undo everything you've done for the last 12 hours. I really want to strongly encourage you to understand that this is like a life hack. This is a cheat code for what's going on inside of you. And we've never had this technology before. My wife damn near did a cartwheel when she couldn't believe that this is handheld and she's got it now. It's helping Jeff. It's helping my wife. It's going to help you too. If you're ready to take the next step in improving your health, go right now to lumen.me/myworld, and man, you'll get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/myworld. You'll get 15% off your purchase. And we thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring today's podcast.
Bingo. Hey, it's unreal. It truly is unbelievable. You know, we here on the pod, we have meal replacement, we have snack bars, we have sold grills, all kinds of things like that. But this is, I'll call it kind of a multiplier, if you will, Conrad, because it is. It's a cheat code. I have learned over the last 2 or 3 years, at the end of the day, just like the wrestling business, your eating timing is everything. And you have to have a cadence, if you will, but it's all based on metabolism. And you just can't say, I kind of feel this, or I kind of not feel this, or plan this or plan that. Nope. Lumen's your cheat code, folks. Lumen.me/myworld, 15% off.
Now let's talk about our topic today, Jeff. I'm excited. We've talked around him for quite a while, but now we're finally tackling the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And of course, he was a big star when you were just a little fella who was watching wrestling. What are your earliest memories of seeing Dusty Rhodes as a fan?
Before we get into this, before this episode's over, are we going to get an American Dream impersonation by you?
Oh, I don't have a good impersonation of Dusty.
Either. I mean, me neither. There's an art to it. Dave Silva can
No,
no,
no, he ain't got it.
he
He
ain't.
ain't
Okay,
I
well,
think we should reserve those for Bruce.
yeah.
Bruce has an excellent one.
Oh, and we'll throw it on you
Yes.
during coffee,
Yeah.
in a creative pitch meeting,
Yes.
driving down the road, a tense moment. Matter of fact, I've seen him produce other talent and almost slip in and out of Dusty. And it's like, no, wait a minute. Anyway, fun stuff. So no impersonations. Conrad, my first earliest memory of Dusty Rhodes. Well, number one, this comes at a real early age, was the magazines.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely was the magazines and the picture, all that. But however crazy this may be, and I wish we can probably figure out, but maybe 79 or 80, and maybe do the quick math or all this. But I saw a Dusty Rhodes commercial of BC Powder. Wasn't it BC Powder or Stand Back? And a car commercial. Anyway, vacationing in Florida, the Florida TV was on. And I just remember, and heck, I don't even remember if it was down around your place. We used to go to Fort Walton. Now, this is as a little kid. I mean, in the 70s. I don't know if it was there, if it was Tampa TV, or if it may have been more south than that, maybe a Fort Myers TV. But anyway, I don't know the local channel. But he did a car commercial, and so it was run where I'm going at. It was outside of wrestling programming. That's really my first memory of him, is Dusty being a pitch guy. But I knew him from the magazines and asked my dad, "Hey, isn't that Dusty Rhodes?" And he would make whatever comment he was going to make. But that's, if you're asking first earliest memory, that was it.
I think you worked for your dad in like 77. You would have been like a 9-year-old at the time. Did you catch any of those shows?
No, but that's it. I think that's in Georgia that he worked for him there, because in Tennessee, it was maybe in and out as far as working for my old man. But my dad did some booking down in Georgia off and on. But as far as as far as him as a talent, now we're getting into early 80s and hearing the conversations between my dad and Crockett's and where Dusty was at. But so again, I wasn't completely dialed in, if you will, with Dusty, because he just didn't work the Tennessee territory. If any kind of shots, if you will, until 83, 84, I think.
In April and June of 77, he did work Memphis.
Wow.
He worked against Jerry Lawler at the Mid-South Coliseum in back-to-back weeks. The first week was a DQ. So the second week, we went back with a lumberjack match that went to a no contest. But a few months prior, he had been in town for the CWA Parade of Champions, where he teamed with Tommy Gilbert to take on Dennis Condrey and Phil Hickerson.
But that was when Lawler was a heel. He was a series of opponents that I believe my old man was bringing in to build Lawler as a heel. So 2 months, not a long stay. In 77, I'm 9 or 10 years old, and I think you said something in the spring. I missed those shots, if you will.
We know that in 1985, that's when we actually see some crossover between what's happening with your dad's promotion and Jim Crockett Promotions. And we actually talked about this with David Crockett on a series we call The Book over on adfreeshows.com. And we have some notes here.
Mm-hmm.
On September 5th, 1985, at the Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky, there was a $78,000 gate. That's going to be a pro wrestling record for the state of Kentucky here. And it's a co-promotion between the CWA, Jarrett Promotions, and Warrior Sports. And it was a $78,000 gate. And that's going to be a pro wrestling record for the state of Kentucky here. And it's a co-promotion between the CWA, Jarrett Promotions, and Warrior Sports. And it's a co-promotion between the CWA, Jarrett Promotions, and Warrior Sports. I mean, you got a whole host of talent like Ric Flair and Jerry Lawler on top, like the Road Warriors from the AWA taking on Ivan and Nikita, like Manny Fernandez wrestling Tully Blanchard, like the Rock and Rolls versus the Midnights. I mean, it's a who's who. So there is some connective tissue, but the big match that Dusty was in that night was Dusty and Magnum TA teaming up to take on Ole and Arn Anderson in a steel cage match. Any chance you would have attended shows in 85 like this?
No, and so give it a little context. I graduated high school May of 85. So I refereed the summer of 85 and the summer of 84. So at this point, I was allowed, I didn't have a seat at the table, but I was allowed in the room. And I do remember all these kind of conversations because it was, a little bit maybe in the 84 summer, but in the 85, making towns, I was pulling the ring, setting it up. So just around box offices and the business and in dressing rooms and making towns, all that. By September of 85, I was playing college basketball. So I wasn't at these shows. And when I really tried to look into like, well, I would have not have been there. And that's when our school had started. Cause I just remember all the conversations about these big co-shows. But the talk that I heard, or I was in the room to hear, was just how WWF was exploding. And they were running all over, and they were going in and buying up TV slots, and just all the tidal wave that was being built. Savage had gone. There was multiple talent that had been through Tennessee that had already gone to WWF, and that hey, this is a good opportunity. The territory by 85 had started, quote unquote, to go down. But man, what a shot in the arm this was going to be. Hey, we're going to raise prices or whatever it was. Lots and lots of talk and planning and optimism. And we're doing a big show, and we're going to do, multiple. And I was trying to think, why didn't we run a big show in Louisville and Evansville and Nashville? Because the two big shows that we're going to talk about in the early days were Lexington and Memphis. But I wasn't at the shows, but man, oh man, I know there was an excitement around the Jarrett household that these shows were going to be taking place.
The Crockett's did a Great American Bash, which you guys co-promoted. The Jarretts did at Mid-South Coliseum in September of 85. That was on the 30th. You guys were doing another co-promotion mid-November at Rupp Arena. This time there's a bunkhouse match with Dusty, Jerry Lawler, and Magnum TA. What a babyface trio that is. Taking on Ole, Arn, and Tully Blanchard. The next day, you're in Mid-South Coliseum. This time again with another bunkhouse match. Dusty, Jerry, and Magnum taking on Tully, Ole, and Arn. What do you think about that six-man? I mean, you want to talk about star power. Magnum TA looks like a movie star. What a great photo that is. Dusty Rhodes, what an icon. And Jerry Lawler, man, the king. That's a badass six-man right there.
Oh, and it's easy for me and you to sit here and talk about this match and maybe have the warm and fuzzies, and that photo is cool and all this. But Conrad, this was something, and look, I can still kind of relate to this. Well, not kind of, incredible today, because there was no story to this match. It was Great American Bash, and we're going to have a big bunkhouse match. But Lawler, on the week-to-week episodic matches, he had different opponents. And so there wasn't really any build-up to any of this. It was kind of a big match put together. The Flair Lawler obviously you didn't need much. Lawler's the top dog around here. He's going to take on the champion. But I remember those conversations on what's the story, how are we going to get there? Not set in those words, but angles and spice ups. And I could just hear my dad chirping out of the ear, like, oh, how are we going to arrive here? Did we get promos sent in from the heels? Is Lawler going to be able to answer it? Can we get Dusty to send an interview in? Because it was promoted much different than the episodic nature of weekly Memphis TV.
Do you know what your dad thought of working with Dusty as a booker? I mean, not as Dusty as a talent, but I know that, obviously you guys go your separate ways as far as the Crockett's and the Jarretts, because they're going to come back in Memphis of, I guess it's July of 86, and they're going to run the Liberty Bowl for a Great American Bash Tour, and they bomb. Depending on who you believe, in a giant football stadium, there's only between like 1,000 and 1,900 folks. And we also know that Jerry Lawler, for whatever reason, was not a huge fan of his matches with Ric Flair. Not a minute of those, not a second of that ever aired on Memphis TV. It just felt like oil and water. And I'm wondering, do you think that was the two Jerrys not getting along with Dusty, or is it the two Jerrys not getting along with the Crockett's?
Oh, probably a mixture of all the above. But look, this is wisdom and experience teaching, and also just firsthand comments. My dad really respected Dusty's creative ability. I think in a lot of ways, my dad prided himself on, first and foremost, the bottom line. What kind of money is it going to make? The next thing would be, connecting with the audience emotionally in a innovative way, a new way, if that makes sense. So a lot of respect from the creative side and the talent side, but we're talking about creative side right here. But I'm going to kind of, and I don't want to call it old school mentality, because it's just what they were used to, is that, look, if I'm going to promote a show in Nashville or Lexington or Memphis, we're going to do it my way. It's my town. And that was kind of a little bit of ruffling of feathers, because I can remember the conversations, maybe not specifically this week that we're talking about back then, but over a period of my first year really in the business, was, at the end of the day, big shows are really difficult, because what are we going to do? Have a night of bunch of non-finishes because nobody wants to lose? And there's kind of a justifiable set of circumstances why a talent from wherever it may be is going to come in and do the honors, and he'll not be here the next week. Well, what good does that do him, not just in the local town, but nationally? Oh, for example, Dusty Rhodes came to Memphis, got his ass beat, and got beat. That doesn't, that it's just difficult. So putting all of this under kind of one big umbrella, and looking at Vince, I'll call it, across the pond or across the fence on his side, they all work for him. So winning and losing didn't matter. It was one boss. Those co-promotions, then you kind of get into the politics and all that. And he was always very aware of, how are we really gonna get through this, because he's a 52 a week year promoter. And okay, so we have a magnificent, great big house. There's always going to be a letdown. How are you going to follow this the following week? So I'm going to say he respected Dusty's creative ability. And when the Crockett's were, because he had a ton of respect for the senior Crockett. And to the day my dad passed away, always just would smile when he would talk about him, how smart he was, how honorable he was. But when you talk about promoters coming into your old territory, my dad still looked at that. Okay, y'all going to come run Memphis against us. We're going to do what we got to do to protect it. So he didn't have so many fond words for them back in the 80s when they were running opposition. That's how he looked at it. He looked at it, and it, I'll say hurt him, but it pissed him off more than Vince McMahon made it clear. I'm doing this. I'm going to take all your talent. I'm going to come in and try to buy your TV. If you don't like it, screw it. This is what I'm doing. One year they're co-promoting with the Crockett's. The following year, they're running opposition. So there was a different mindset.
We know that 1987 is going to be a crazy pivotal year for all of wrestling. WrestleMania 3 just creates a boom for the World Wrestling Federation, and their arena business blows up. A lot of the territory dollars start to dry up. Crockett runs way in the red and winds up selling out in 88. But one of their last stands, if you will, the Crockett's ran one final opposition show, if you will, and it's Dusty in a headline position on March 5th, 1987. So this is not too terribly long, just a few weeks before WrestleMania 3. And we're going to have a match here in Memphis and I can't believe this is real, Dusty versus Bill Dundee to crown a new King of Tennessee. This is clearly a shot at your dad's promotion and Jerry Lawler. Bill Dundee, the longest, most bitter rival, most storied rivalry in Memphis history, maybe, between Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee. Now Bill Dundee beats Dusty Rhodes. So as far as Crockett programming goes, he's the new King of Tennessee. This does around 2,500 fans, according to Dave Meltzer, which is surprising and disappointing, Meltzer says, since the card had Jimmy Valiant, Dutch Mantell, Morton and Gibson. So many classic Memphis stars are loaded up here because they work for Crockett now. But the gate is a pretty abysmal $21,500. Is there any chance you remember this? Bill Dundee coming to town running opposition with Dusty against your dad? My God.
Well, and that the legitimate heat between Lawler and Dundee was obviously prevalent. Legitimate, well, and that was personal. Business heat would be between the Crockett's and the Jarretts. And, you know, at one point, Harley Race wanted to call himself, or did call himself, the King of Wrestling, which Lawler took offense to. But the King of Memphis, and I can remember, man, I'd love to go back and have the ability. Boy, we ought to ask Lawler, Connie, because obviously my father and Dusty have passed on. But it was almost silly in a way that at this point, Lawler had been the King of Memphis for years. And it was, yes, it's a direct shot. But I think when you do the story behind the story, and by 87, Dundee had been to Kansas City. You know, he left. He'd done the Watts, and then he came back. But, you know, he'd been to Kansas City. They rolled up the sleeves. Watts had rolled up. By this point, Dallas was not in good shape. Florida was rolled up their sidewalks. You know, all the territory. And so from a business perspective, my best recollection would be is that, for lack of a better word, the Crockett's in their footprint on America, they were desperate to generate revenue in some ways. And so in their mind, hey, let's go into Memphis. We'll draw a house in there. And the Great American Bash in the Liberty Bowl, even if it was 2000, which I think it's debatable, but let's say 2000, the football stadium holds 60, 50, 60, 70. It was, just imagine that, just horrible. And then this show we're talking about, and I can remember the lesson and whether Lawler and my dad were gloating or talking serious, or it's car talk driving back from, boy, I could get on a soapbox now that just sitting under a learning tree, being in a car for 3 hours and hearing wrestling talk could do so many guys a lot of good. But the fact was that even back in this era, that Dundee, yeah, he drew a lot of money in Memphis, and Dusty drew money all over the world, and blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, they weren't on Channel 5 TV. They weren't on there, and that's the vehicle. And the people in 1987 were still super connected emotionally to Channel 5 wrestling, if you will, in Memphis. And so that TBS show, and I know they had syndication in Memphis on different U channels and stuff like that. It just didn't get the job done. And the people of Memphis looked at Dutch and the rock and roll and all those guys. If you're coming to Memphis and you're not on Channel 5 TV, it must not be that important, because those shows, they were abysmal. I mean, they bombed.
Let's talk about the next time you would have ran into Dusty. You know, I don't think you guys would have crossed paths again until you went to work for WCW in 1996. At the time, he was working as an announcer, and I'm sure he was helping in some capacities backstage. But did you have much of a relationship in your first WCW run with Dusty? What can you tell us about that?
Now, look, we'll call it from that 87, 88, 89, from time to time, I would get, I don't say feelers. Hey, man, Dusty'd love for you to come make a TV. Literally, those are the words I heard from different folks of, and I don't know if that was a gig at my dad or he really was interested or a combination of the both. But so when I saw Dusty for the first time in WCW, it's as if, but look, again, him and my father had a history, him and Lawler. We didn't have to really break the ice, Conrad, because at this point I'd started, worked the territory 5, 6, 7 years, went up to Vince, had call it the Double J IC run. By the time that I got to work with him at WCW, I had an established career. Not saying a long one, but at this point I'd been making the towns 10 years. So we immediately hit it off. But his position in at this point obviously wasn't what it was in the prior years. But I mean, that was our first working around each other during this time.
So let's talk about 2001. This is when you actually get an opportunity to work with Dusty. And we've covered some of this in the archives, but when you come back for your second run in WCW, you're not the same performer. You're now, instead of being somewhere in the middle of the card in that US title picture, now you're the chosen one and you're the world champ. You're in the main events, and you somehow, some way find yourself doing promos and sharing a ring with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. I know we've talked about it in the archives, but I'm so glad you got to do this. Like, what a legend, what an icon. Did it feel that way at the time, or was the craziness of WCW sort of overwhelming and you couldn't really put perspective on it?
No. I did not lose sight of that like at all. I think to kind of, in my world, which is my brain, we just touched on 96, but we've already jumped ahead 4 years. And in a lot of ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, during that Attitude Era, Dusty was a color commentator, right? He really,
yes.
Kevin Sullivan was the booker, and obviously Eric and all that. But Dusty did commentary, Nitro Thunder. What was his kind of? Help me out, because I'm going somewhere with this.
So you see right there, Tony's the play-by-play guy, and he's flanked by a baby face color guy and a heel color guy.
Yep.
Maybe these days, we would say Dusty was like Taz and he was the analyst.
Yep.
But that's sort of the 3-man booth that we all grew up with and sort of peak WCW. I think most people think of Dusty Rhodes, Tony Schiavone, and Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I say that, when I get to the China match and I go to WCW and we're off and running, and for lack of a better word, the Russo style TVs were, and a ton of new talent. It was the Millionaire Club, and we don't need to rehash everything, but we'll just say the Millionaires Club, a lot of new talent, fast pace, moving at the breakneck speed, all the stuff that was going on, me and Flair's opportunities. So, Conrad, would this be, what was the June of 2000?
January of 2001 is what we're talking about when he comes back.
That's what I say. Okay, so I've been there over a year and a half.
You've been there since late 99, and now we're in January of 01. Dusty comes back on Nitro in Baltimore. Huge pop.
The reason I say all that is this. There had been so much craziness with an influx of talent. and I'll say this as diplomatically as possible, who's over and not, including me, who's over and who's not over, who's, what's it's Shock TV and switching titles. And look, I'm not justifying or I'm not criticizing. It was what it was. But by January of 2001, me getting to work with Dusty Rhodes, who is over, like, he's a legend. I mean, no doubt about it. He's you don't have to do anything. B, he can tell a story with a microphone, regardless of what's given to him from creative. And C, in my brain, are you kidding me? Me and Dustin, we go back to the Texas days, late 80s. I'd worked with him as Goldust and Double J. I'd worked with him, around him, all this kind of stuff. So when it was kind of, here's kind of what we're doing, Conrad, it wasn't just a bucket list. Hell yeah, I get to do this. It was such a relief that, all right, if you've got Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and Dustin Rhodes as a part of this, we're going to have a hell of an entertaining segment. That's how I looked at it. I mean, it was such, I'll say, a relief. I was excited because there was many a time that I'm like, all right, I'm going to run the play and control what I can control. And we've talked about that here on the pod over and over and over during the WCW run. On this, there was a ton of excitement. With all the craziness going on, it was still, all right, man, let's go have fun.
Let's just put in perspective where we are here in early 2001 with where WCW was. Nitro started before Monday Night Raw. So normally when Raw would start, you would see 600,000 to 1 million people change the channel. Off goes Nitro. Here we come Monday Night Raw. When Dusty Rhodes is on the screen, when he comes back here in Baltimore, January 29th, 2001, 78,000 people switch over to Raw. Not 600,000, not 1 million people, only 78,000. That to me speaks to the star power of Dusty Rhodes, maybe more than anything else. Like, where fans are conditioned in droves, hundreds of thousands, sometimes 1 million, to change the channel, because no matter what's on WCW, it ain't going to be as good as what's on Monday Night Raw. I'm switching the button. I'm hitting the clicker. And when Dusty's there, only 78,000 do that. That's remarkable, don't you think?
Yes, it's remarkable. But if you really know history, and I'm not talking about TV rating history, I'm talking about the industry from generations and generations. And it's like, kind of, and I don't want to, no, this is appropriate. They're going to rabbit hole. I can remember my old man in his office, and I'm sitting there. You can call it a random Tuesday afternoon before I go to Louisville, or Wednesday afternoon, Evansville, or Thursday before I go to the spot show, or whatever. But sitting in his office, waiting on my old man to get done with his call so we can talk about what's going to happen in the town tonight. But him talking to Jackie Fargo, literally, Conrad, about gambling, about football, about this old story or that old story. I mean, just talk. I felt like for hours about absolutely nothing. I'm biting my lips saying, come on, Dad, I got to get on the road. Would you just shut up and ask Jackie what you got to ask him? But my dad went into that investment of the call. And Conrad, I'm sure you've done this many, many times in your line of work. The only reason he was on that call was, hey, Jackie, can you get your buddy over there who shoots your interviews? And I'd love it for it to be about 3 minutes. Don't give me no 90 seconds. And if you want to talk 3.5, go on that. But my dad would get Jackie Fargo, the established legend, to send it into Memphis TV, to let it air, to sell Nashville, whatever it was, because my old man knew that's the power of the legend being on your TV and to promote your town. It's the exact same philosophy we're talking about with Dusty. People knew him, but they also, the equity in his brand, if you will, I'm about to be entertained. I'm not changing the channel.
Allegedly, Dusty coming back and being on TV is an Eric Bischoff idea, which makes sense. I know how fondly Eric thought of Dusty and how he held him in high regard. And it's written in the torch that the idea was, we'll keep it super top secret, talking about Dusty's return, and we'll make it a very short stint, maybe even just a one-off. I think that was the original idea, as it was supposed to be a one-off. The ratings come back, and then they're like,
Of
maybe we
course.
do a little more. It's pretty remarkable to see, what we're doing next, because Nitro on February 5th is in Tupelo, and we're going to get more Dusty Rhodes here. And of course, we know we're going to be dealing with Dustin and Dusty. The ratings come out, it's still doing well. I mean, I don't think anybody expected at this late in the game Dusty Rhodes to be a draw, but it worked. I mean, the Observer would even say there were no plans at present to use Dusty Rhodes on television again, even with the pop and rating he drew. According to Bischoff, he feels Rhodes can be used effectively maybe 2 or 3 times per year on TV to get the nostalgia pop, but his appearance in Baltimore was designed as a way to help get Dustin over. What do you make of that? Do you believe that? Do you buy that? Like, it feels like Dustin had his own fans by this point. He had been Gold Dust and made so much waves and so much press and so much attention for himself. And then even in WCW before the WWF run as the Natural, I mean, he had been in Sting Squadron and main eventing War Games, and his stuff with Dusty back then, Seal It with a Kiss. I mean, great stuff. But there was something about Dusty that was just magic. What do you think of this assertion that we brought Dusty back to help get the kid over? Is that fair?
So, I want to make sure I understand your question. Do I believe that's why they brought Dusty back?
Well, I'm just saying, to me, at this point, he's so established. It would be like if they were to, let's say AEW was running a show in Memphis and a few years ago before your dad passed. I don't think they would have said, well, let's get Jerry to come out with him and shine up Jeff. It's like, he's already established. What are we doing that for?
And that's what I'm saying is, if you're asking my opinion, the reality is you bring Dusty back, that hurts Dustin.
I think so too.
There's no question about that. So I believe that the real reason was to bring Dusty back was let's pop a number and see what happens. And if it really is a one-off, if it really was a one-off, Mole Man would say, I've heard him say this many times. I mean, even when I was, I'll say 3 or 4 years into the business, Conrad, nowhere close to be, I was established, but that's relative. But he would tell Lawler or whoever it may be, if I'm coming back, I'll never save Jeff, ever. I'll go out first and get beat up. He saves me. Okay, if we're going to end up in all this, I've got to play the role of lesser than, because he's the one who makes the towns every week. It doesn't make sense to put me in that lead role. It doesn't, no matter what. And that was the philosophy. So I don't really believe that. Now, look, some people may not subscribe to that philosophy or think that deep into it or give a crap, be honest. But if anything, if when the one-off turned into multiple deal, I think the positioning could have really done something for long-term. Let's boost Dustin up here, but they didn't.
We got to talk about it. I know we've touched on it in the archives, but this gives us another excuse to show it. February 19th, 2001, which I think is the day after Dale Earnhardt died.
Yes, because we had a show the day before. Logan Steakhouse, Franklin, Tennessee, walked in, whatever the NASCAR race that was. It was obviously number 3, hit the wall in Daytona and passed. That was, Conrad, people, it was just a different era, but it was, the world stopped in a lot of ways for a few hours when all that came down.
Well, the very next day, you're getting in costume in Huntsville, Alabama, dressing up like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. It's described as, well, let me just go ahead and read exactly what Dave and Wade said.
Oh, of course they're not going to like it.
Jarrett did a segment where he came out like he was Eddie Murphy and Nutty Professor with all the fat padding to imitate Dusty Rhodes. The idea was good, but the segment was terrible and seemed like it would never end. The crowd didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Jarrett did a bunch of ridiculous Dusty spots and some job guys to take bumps for him the way the Horsemen used to in the 80s. That should have been funny, but for some reason it wasn't. Jarrett just isn't funny, even with good material. Jarrett gave one of the guys the shattered dreams, and Dustin came out for the save. But Rick Steiner attacked him, allowing Jarrett to clock him with a guitar. You make fun of his dad for 20 minutes, but steal his move, and then you're in trouble. And here's what Wade said. Even though Jeff Jarrett's impersonation of Dusty Rhodes probably didn't hit home with younger fans, it stole the show. The sad thing is that Jarrett has been more entertaining as Sting and Dusty as he has been in his own tired persona. So, boy, they both can't help but shit on you a little bit, but they had totally different opinions. Dave hated it. Wade loved it. What I find is ironic, let's throw that photo up, any of those from Huntsville again, Dave, because as we're looking at this, this is the same building and in the same general spot where the ring is positioned, where Jeff Jarrett would run his very first TNA show. And his last appearance in the building, Von Braun Center, before he starts TNA, is him in that same building dressed up like Dusty Rhodes. How fun is that?
In that spot, right in the center of that ring, and we used on episode 1 an old Nitro ring with old Nitro mats turned upside down.
Oh my God.
If you will. And one Toby Keith suplexed me in that very, very close to that same spot. And another little fun fact that as I was prepping, because when I was given that creative, I think maybe either a week or maybe just a few days before, hey, we're going to get you to do a Dusty impersonation. And I said to Russo and Ferrara, Ed Ferrara, folks, I just said, I don't do the impersonation. I'm not good at that. I'll dress like him and we'll do all that, but let me, have a little fun and then talk like I talk. And they just were headstrong and said, nope. And I said, Ed, then he said, I will work with you and I'll teach you how to say certain, dweem as opposed to dream. So I think R's or W's, and he broke it down phonetically for me. And so anyway, and Mr. Silva, where me and Ferrara had our probably about an hour he worked with me first for about 20 minutes. And then I came back and we worked literally probably, 30 or 40 minutes.
Can I guess where it happened?
Can you guess, Conrad? I'm going to give you one choice, and then I'll tell you the answer. We don't have a lot of time to go do nonsense.
I'm going to guess that you and Ed Ferrara were working through your Dusty impression at the Von Braun Civic Center in downtown Huntsville, Alabama, near what's known as, and everybody knows this. Oh,
sure.
The Elephant Door?
Whoa, my gosh. You are so damn smart.
Look what I can do. Look what I can do.
You know what an elephant door is.
Of course.
Yeah, you take elephants in and out of it. Now, Mr. Silva,
never heard of it.
Oh, he'll give you that blank stare, like you're saying, what? But anyway,
that is a real story. I know. We said we weren't going to go further on it, but today let's just shit on Dave Silva a little bit.
Oh, I'd like to do it a lot, but
I find it hilarious that we arrange a little private shoot for you in the Von Braun Center so we could get some footage for the 20-year anniversary of the launch of TNA. We arrange it with the fine folks at Probst Arena, which used to be called the Von Braun Civic Center. And an arrangement is made of who's going to meet where and when and all that jazz.
VBCC.
And you're in the building and communicating to Dave Silva where you are.
Via text.
And Dave Silva, like a goof, pulls up to the front door like he's here to see Celine Dion in her Christmas show. As if that's where you would go. He didn't look at the back entrance.
Lunch hour in downtown Huntsville.
And by the way, it's not like he had not been to an AEW or WWE show and been backstage before and knows you don't go in through the front door to do that. No. But then when you're like, I'm at the Elephant Door, he's like, but there's not a circus here.
Hey, Jeff, I'm up front with my hazards on. Do I just leave my car at the box office? I said, Dave, are you buying tickets to what are you buying tickets to?
It's closed. There's nothing here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, should I move my car? Well, if you come to the Elephant Door, Dave, there's parking. Yeah, there's parking spaces. Well, I got my hazards on up here. I'm in the fire lane. Can I leave it here? No, Dave, come to the Elephant Door. Where is the Elephant Door? Because I don't see anything up here about Barnum and Bailey Circus.
No, I don't see any clowns. I don't see any lions. No trapeze artists.
Nope, not a one.
How am I supposed to know where the petting zoo part of the VBC is? I don't see it. I don't know.
Yeah, Dave, get in your car, take your hazards off, get out of the fire lane, and drive around to the back of the building where the production entrance is.
It makes me wonder, do you think Dave Silva believes that when Roman Reigns goes to the show, he just pulls up to the front entrance and walks past all the fans and pulls the door open?
Guess what? The wise man walks around, opens the door,
Holds the belt up through all the fans.
Yeah, throws that finger up.
You're solo throwing the finger. All right, we'll leave Dave alone.
Anyway,
we're done busting.
I'll go back to this because the clip of me doing my one and only time to do the American Dream impersonation, the people in the audience, they dug it, Connie. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And if I can get Dusty and Dustin and Nature Boy and production, Keith Mitchell's of the world, they were entertained. So that's all I needed to hear.
Super fun to look back in this era and all the fun silliness you got to do. It's even written in the torch that your impersonation on Nitro was a big hit with the locker room.
Oh,
and they said that Dustin was cool with you impersonating his dad.
Oh,
was that discussed at all? I mean, he knows it's business.
Yeah, but me and again, when with Dustin in AEW, I've actually had, just people don't realize how far back me and Dustin go. 88. The other day I was ribbing him about, your car's out back, Dustin. It's a little red Dodge pickup truck. It's the first car he had when I met him. So anyhow, no, it was all good. A lot of fun, actually. A lot of fun.
As we fast forward to Greenville, South Carolina on March 6th, I mean, we're less than 3 weeks away from WWE buying WCW and that being it. We see Ric Flair come out here. Now he's got the fat suit on, and Dusty Rhodes is going to cut a promo on Rick and call him Fat Boy. And it does the best rating of the entire Nitro is actually Dusty and Dustin teaming up to take on Road Warrior Animal and Ric Flair. Of course, we know where we're going to be working with you guys on the big pay-per-view, the last one. It is kind of crazy to think that.
Yes, I know where you're going.
In the dying days of WCW, in the ashes of, by this point, your dad's promotion, he's out of the wrestling business. He's done. And now it feels like the end of Jim Crockett Promotions. I know that, WCW became a thing when Crockett got bought out back in 88. But when WCW sells to Vince, that's really sort of the end of
it is
territory wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions, all that jazz. And Dusty finds himself with one last opportunity on big time television like that. And this is interesting for Dusty because he had been fired the year prior as a part of a downsizing payroll cut. He did get a big severance check, but still being shown the door on something that you helped build. And now on its last legs, he's got one last opportunity and it winds up being there with you. I really do think on some level, dude, you're like the freaking Forrest Gump of wrestling. Here you are again in this special moment.
Connie, and doing the podcast is when the historical perspective, there are no such thing or coincidences. It's a convergence, the grand weaver. There is no doubt in my mind from the Jim Crockett days to the WCW's final nail in the coffin. And you could maybe argue Stinger, but Sting's, I just don't think he's got enough in the Jim Crockett days. So the two guys with, I think in a lot of ways, by far the most historical importance in Jim Crockett Promotions, from the territory to going national and the run all the way up. And Flair went to WWF and came back. Dusty got let go, and from Booker to announcer and all the history. They had never ever wrestled against each other on pay-per-view, and it takes the last event and me and Rick's relationship, Dusty with his son, and we're on the last pay-per-view. Connie, it's really to me a fascinating kind of footnote to WCW, but I don't even want to call it an Easter egg, but it really is a unique highlight, if you will, in my career.
It's fun too to give perspective. This is going to be his last match in WCW, what's left of Jim Crockett Promotions. He's not going to wrestle again for WWE on their national television until 2006. He'll have a couple of matches there, and then one in 07. It's really interesting to think, that this is, of all the opponents, it's you. I mean, Dave Silva, our producer, he's even private messaging us now saying, Jeff's really the last match outlaw because you were there for Flair's. And I know this isn't exactly Dusty's last match, but Dusty's last match in WCW and JCP. Super cool. But I do want to ask you, because the WCW website in this era even promoted, hey, Dusty versus Jarrett. And then they come out and say, well, no, that was a mistake. And in reality, there's reports that behind the scenes, Dusty couldn't agree on money with WCW. Maybe he still had some hurt feelings about being let go the year before. Do you remember hearing that they were working towards a singles match with you and Dusty, not a tag match, and then it fell apart for money?
I mean, yes, I heard. Look, you heard so many things, but I do truly believe that the four of us were enjoying it and knew there was some legs on it. But when I did the impersonation, it really lasered in. And look, it's almost ridiculous of me to say that, Dusty Flair. But at this point, Rick was wrestling in slacks and Hawaiian shirts, and it just kind of was what it was. And he was a little bit disenfranchised for all the obvious and right reasons. But when I did the impersonation, it's like we shot the angle between me and Dusty in a lot of ways. And so, yes, they were headed that way. But I didn't hear all the money talk and, right hand talking to the left hand, or not talking to the left hand was no surprise during this era. That the live event promoter was always wanting, hey man, we need something to push tickets. We need something. We hear this and that. It was obviously a cluster in a lot of ways, but yeah, what a little fun era of my career.
Let's talk a little bit about creative. There's reports in both the Observer and the Torch that you and Rick were not necessarily happy with how the creative was being done with the fake Dusty angle. And there's even another report that Flair was told by WCW management to tone down his character, be more calm and deliberate, not the ranting and raving lunatic. Wade would even say, neither Dusty nor Rick have been especially happy with their segments together, in part because of the handcuffs placed on them. The idea being they wanted to go be perhaps Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes from JCP from 10 or 15 years prior. And I guess management will say, no, you can't do it that way. Do you remember there being back and forth about what you could or couldn't do in these segments?
So obviously I wasn't privy to any of this, but when I read the research and Meltzer or Keller or both phrased it as WCW management, I thought to myself, as Connie would say, okay, WCW management. They're not really saying Kevin Sullivan or Eric Bischoff or Vince Russo or any of the names. I took that as, wait a minute, is practice and standards and practices weighing in and they've got an issue, and maybe Rick had said a few things or they were in fear of that, or, were they more worried that Dusty, and because man, when you go back during this time frame and, Eric or Russo are much more qualified because of kind of their positions. But I know that standards and practices, they really wanted formats and they wanted to see what everything was going to be said. They were trying to do their job, but also that's a network, not completely understanding the business they're in, that the best stuff is not scripted by far. But I read that as WCW management's wanting them to tone it down. I think it's probably a better phrase. Maybe standards and practices wanted more control. And those two guys had no problem at all telling Eric or Vince or Ed Ferrar or any of them, don't give me no freaking script. Tell me where you want to go, and that's what I'm doing. That's exactly how they were born and raised and made their money at.
I want to talk about the last match. We know Greed is going to be the pay-per-view. It's the last significant WCW show in history. There's going to be about 5,000 fans. And what's so interesting and ironic, the last WCW pay-per-view is in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a movie
I'm
sometimes.
telling you.
It's so crazy. But we've talked about this match before. As a reminder, it's a kiss my ass match. We're going to see a bunch of vignettes that will go throughout the pay-per-view to talk about how Dusty's been eating a whole bunch of bean burritos because he's getting ready for you to kiss his ass. And even Wade says he was disappointed there wasn't a flatulence spot, that he felt like the match needed a campy spot like that. I know that in an alternate universe, you would have liked to have had, Dusty from 1981, not 2021 or 2001. I'll get it out. It was campy. I mean, you got Ric Flair, as you said, wrestling in a Hawaiian shirt and slacks and dress shoes, as you see. But man, what an opportunity to be in there with all those legends. When you look back at that now with the benefit of hindsight, what do you think about having that opportunity in Jacksonville on pay-per-view? What a star-studded affair.
Well, and that's a great shot there for my world YouTube fans. Dusty's about to back up and do the Rikishi. But just the going back to the word, not coincidence, the convergence. I mean, okay, Jacksonville, we wouldn't have thought about that anything when it happened, but what would it be 18 years later that the genesis of the next iteration of organization that's going to be on TBS and TNT, I'll say the seeds were planted in the city of Jacksonville, but more than that, to have those guys in the pay-per-view and the showbiz. But I'll say this, to be in the ring, and this is there's this time frame, but on a pay-per-view, to be in the ring with a baby face like Dusty that didn't have to punch, didn't have to kick, didn't have to do anything except his mannerisms, and the people stand, there is such a there's a lesson in that, but there's a reality in that what the wrestling fan pays to see, if that makes sense. That yes, that they want to come see all kinds of things, and you can say, oh, it's a different era, and then I'm going to say, well, maybe not. But being in the ring, and look, I'd been that with Rick multiple times, and there's different folks through all kinds of generations. But Dusty, that kind of babyface who had not really been on TV as a performer, gosh, Conrad, how long had it been since he had been a performer, not a color commentator analyst? I mean, years, right? I mean, it's got to be. But I just remember going, okay, this guy's so super over. It was a lot of fun. The whole program was fun.
As crazy as it sounds, Jeff, I saw Dusty, I think, in 2000 in ECW. Isn't that crazy? 2000. Him and Steve Carino. I was at the
wow.
What's the name of that building in Atlanta? The Tabernacle. You ever been there?
Yep.
Man, what a cool venue that is.
Yeah.
So the king of old school comes out with Jack Victory, and Steve Carino starts talking a little trash. He starts talking trash to Dusty Rhodes, who was in the crowd wearing a ball cap, a flannel button up, and a Cleveland Browns white t-shirt, jeans, and cowboy boots. Slides in. Everybody gets the big elbow. People went bananas in Atlanta. It was awesome.
But before that, when had he been? And that's ECW,
94. I mean, I think he was in a tag match once after the whole Steiner twist, maybe.
Okay.
But I think 94 was like the end of his, and that was in WCW. He was working for WCW.
That's what I'm saying. So the Attitude Era hadn't really. This is
new for Dusty. Yeah,
man, and that's why I was, and I knew, I knew, but actually being in the ring and watching his charisma, look out across the crowd and look at Rick and do different things, you just go, okay, we haven't even come close to doing anything of substance, and he has them in the palm of his hand. That's when a guy, you go, okay, he's over.
The next night on Nitro, this is where they bring out the donkey and it says Dusty's ass on it. And the whole show is based around kissing his ass. And this isn't exactly the last Nitro, but they are talking about it's going to be the end of the season. But you see Dusty bringing out the donkey there where they've written Dusty's ass on the back. Silly fun. Any memories of this episode of Nitro?
Well, imagine this. There was a lot of moving parts this day. We're changing this, we're changing that. How are we going to get to this spot? How are we going to do this spot? We knew the end result, but how we were going to get there, I think. And again, we've kind of referenced this. This is Gainesville, correct, Conrad?
Yeah, Gainesville on March 12th.
And then we go to Panama City the next week, correct?
2 weeks after is the last Nitro.
So like the not just the buzz, the vibe. Yeah, we had to go produce Nitro, but there was a lot of uneasiness. Like, what's really going on? We knew, we know. So, but then you still got to go produce a Nitro and a Thunder. I think the same night. It was crazy. But so I don't have what I remember is backstage, 1,000 Chiefs and me and Dustin were probably two of a few Indians.
Let's we know that what's going to happen. It's going to be the end of WCW and that's it. And we've talked about the formation and the creation of TNA. And we referenced, the last time you were in the Von Braun Civic Center where you're going to run your first TNA show. You're in the Dusty costume. Now you're going to come back, run your first TNA show. Dusty's not on the show. Now, I don't expect Dusty to come out there and be a part of the Battle Royal and get in there and mix it up and wrestle with, too, which I'm sure he could have because he did years later, even for WWE. But he wasn't even a part of the Legends contingent where we had Ricky Steamboat and we had Jackie Fargo and we had Bob Armstrong. Ricky Steamboat was kind of from the mainstream, he was one of your top guys. But man, if you had Dusty there with the 10 pounds of gold, the original belt, that would have been amazing. Why didn't it happen? Was there residual hard feelings, do you think, between your dad and Dusty, or was there more to it than that?
If I remember the best I can remember, I'll say the residual might have played somewhat into it, but if you kind of look at those legends, but the centerpiece was just what you said, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, NWA World Champion, and the brand was total nonstop action. Dusty was known for talking, not working. And so if I remember correctly, and look, it could have been more of a Jerry Jarrett influence. I really don't think so. I think it was more of budget, but we're going to put our eggs in the Steamboat basket because when time came, it was, hey man, the NWA lineage and this and that. And he makes maybe, if I had to say in year one of TNA, your favorite line ever. So no, Dusty was not ever, hey, we don't want to bring him in. It was total nonstop action mentality.
It's just weird to me with the benefit of hindsight. And I know that I'm a belt nerd and nobody cares, but you've got the 10 pounds of gold. And when I think of that belt, yes, I think of Ric Flair a little bit, but for some reason I do think of Dusty. And obviously I think of Terry Funk and Dory and so many other great legends who held that title. Harley, goodness gracious. But even when Steamboat was the NWA champion, he was using the big gold belt. And I don't know. I think it's interesting that you've got all these other legends like
Dory and Harley.
Yes, but you've also got, to be clear, Jackie Fargo and Bob Armstrong and Bill Behrens. And there are lots of other Sarah Lee. There's lots of other talent. And I don't know. I would have loved to have seen Dusty there.
Oh, me too. But his price tag wasn't cheap either.
There we go. Okay, that's what I was getting to. Do you think Dusty priced himself out based on he didn't really want to do it? A little get back for Jerry Jarrett, maybe leverage with WWE. If you try to get into the mind of a wrestler, because we've all known guys who have hey, here's my price, but then I'll give you a hookup price, but over here, maybe not so much. When you're trying to wrap your head around wrestler mentality of why Dusty may not have made that shot, could you pinpoint maybe this or that?
Because I had the conversations over and over and over with guys. You have to really go back now that, I'll call it FITE days and a couple of the different streamers. The words pay-per-view had a lot of cachet in the late 90s and early 2000s. When you hear, hey, we're doing this big pay-per-view on wrestling over in Huntsville, where y'all running? At the Ron Ron Civic Center. Who you got on there? Oh, we're probably going to have Hall, and we're going to have Ken Shamrock, and Toby's going to sing the opener. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll make it for 10. Well, that's really not the role we had. Well, that's okay. If you want me, let me know. That's my price tag. Okay. Now, I'm not positive we had that conversation or even got down that road, but that was, that was the mindset.
Yeah, listen, when I was putting together StarCast and whatnot, I had several of those conversations, and not all of them are super easy. You remember one out on the West Coast? I was trying to land a big fish, and it was just a crazy number. And it's like, hey, Jeff, can you help me? And we both struck out. It is what it is.
Yes.
That's going to do it for Dusty Rhodes today. We are going to do another episode in the future when we talk about Dusty Rhodes in TNA, because he does make the jump to come work with the company. But it's not June of 2002. It's January of 2003.
Yep.
So we'll pick up where we left off in the future for that. But before we put a bow on this episode, I wanted to do some questions from our live studio audience. And as a reminder, you can be a part of our live studio audience when you join us over at adfreeshows.com. And if you love nostalgia and you love the throwbacks, I wanted to give you a heads up about a program we have called The Book, where we go episodically, day by day, page by page, show by show, through the matches, through the card, through the attendance, through the gate. And we learn about the business of running a professional wrestling business. And I've actually got a clip where we're going to talk about something David and I just recently talked about. We broke down August of 1986 for Jim Crockett Promotions, where we saw Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes in Atlanta take care of business. Let's go.
We've got one mega show in Atlanta, Dusty and Flair on top. And then we've got Magnum TA and Nikita on top in Philadelphia. So we do $37,000 in Atlanta with Flair and Dusty, with $60,000 in Philadelphia. What do you make of this? Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, they're drawing almost double in Philadelphia what Flair and Dusty and the Road Warriors are drawing in Atlanta. How was that received politically? Were there any hurt feelings about that one?
Of course. I mean, you have Ricky and Robert walking around like big roosters with their chests stuck out. And, look what we did. Look what we did. I mean, because they'd say that to me. They still do. When I see Ricky, God, you remember when we did this? And sure, Cornette's going to brag about it. Magnum's not going to say much. Nikita, but he would. But that means what we're doing and what they're doing, talking about Magnum and Tully and what matches they have. God, and then Midnight and Rock and Roll Express, they're still going. Great guns. Then you had, you've got Wahoo there. He's just an icing to the cake, so yeah.
Check it out if you haven't already. Adfreeshows.com is the place to be. That's where you'll get exclusive series you can't see anywhere else, including The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbag with Mike Chioda and referee Nick Patrick. How about Tully Vision? That's right. We sit down with Tully Blanchard and relive the good old days every month at adfreeshows.com. We also catch up with our pal Sam Adonis, who's teaching us about Lucha Libre. We're learning a lot about AAA at CMLL. It's called Learning Lucha, and you can check that out now. You can also enjoy Pod Ain't Easy with the Godfather. He hooks up with the Casio that we know and love, and they have some jokes and maybe some tokes. It's a good time. How about Lex Expressed? That's right. Lex Luger has an exclusive series at adfreeshows.com. You get all these bonus contents, plus you get bonus episodes from all of our hosts each month, You get all of our StarCast stage panels. There's live interactive Q&As. There's watch-alongs. But more than all that, man, it's a big community, and we're getting together more often than you imagine. We look for excuses to watch wrestling together. Come join us. Be a part at adfreeshows.com. How about Top Guy Rumble? Be here before you know it. We're doing Wrestling Fantasy Camp. The same guy who taught The Rock how to wrestle will teach you how to step between the ropes. Maybe you learn how to lock up and run the ropes, and who knows what else Dr. Tom will teach you. After that, you're going to get to put your Booker hat on. We're going to do Top Guy Tussle, and we're going to create our own independent show by us for us. Meaning, would you like to be a referee? Would you like to be a ring announcer? Would you like to be a manager? You get to help decide what happens on the show and then perform in the show. And then we'll blow it off watching the Royal Rumble together. The game event is coming to town. Efren is coming, and he's bringing 2 WrestleMania tickets. This is an experience you can't get anywhere else. I encourage everybody, take a look at adfreeshows.com. You'll see there's something for everybody. Jeff, we got a few questions from that live studio audience right now. Aaron Sheen wants to know, what's the best advice Dusty ever gave you, wrestling or about life in general?
Yeah, you know, he really, Aaron, I appreciate your question. He really, and we're going to get into this when we do Dusty in TNA, and I can almost see kind of the title of the episode, A Midget. We won't get into that right now, but every week he would drive up from Atlanta. He had his same routine. He was old school, and he wasn't sure if we were going to be around the next week or the next week or the next week. When he walked in, he wanted his money, even to the last shot he made. I mean, that's just how he operated it until he really came on full time. But he was a big proponent of, hey, you got this 2 hours show of the Asylum shows, laser in on literally one story, 1 point, 1 match, 1 star. How are we going to get this guy over? He says, just building stars. He was just a big believer in just, my dad would use the old analogy, the spotlight has got to get more intense, but smaller and smaller and smaller, where the audience understands what you are selling. Dusty had a big belief in that as well, that he liked AJ. He liked a lot of our talent. You know, as things evolved, he didn't know what he was getting into, and I often say that, but he was, hey man, Jeff, you are, and I look on those days as he was, you know, on the payroll and coming up as a talent and all that kind of stuff. But he was also served as a, you know, I'm hearing stuff from my dad. I'm hearing stuff from Dutch. I'm hearing stuff from, you name it, all kinds of folks. Dusty was basically a mentor in that he didn't have a dog in the hunt at the time. He wanted to help. He was having fun, and he enjoyed his, you know, it was a Wednesday night, so it was a payoff. But Aaron, he really, as a executive producer, if you will, stay focused on one thing that will bear the most fruit.
Aaron Sheen is also with us, and he has he's looking for some advice, Jeff. I don't know if you can help him with this, though. Let's see what he says.
Oh, boy.
Hey, Double J, hope you're doing great. I got a question, not wrestling related. I got a surgery tomorrow. It's my first one. Do you remember your first surgery, wrestling related or not? And were you nervous?
Well, we've kind of talked about that, Connie. Hey, I guess the knock on wood, Aaron, don't jinx me. It's the tooth extracted. I don't have surgery stories. Don't have any, man.
You don't have any because?
Praise God. I haven't had a surgery.
Knock on wood again, just
Yeah.
in case.
Yeah. Well.
We're pulling for you, Aaron, though. I hope it's out and you don't have anything major going on.
I'll say this. Any obstacle, any issue you're going through, visualize a successful outcome. And if you have any kind of thoughts that creep in and worst case scenario, or this didn't go that, block it out and follow it up. Visualize a successful outcome. You create in your mind, manifest. What is your definition of success? What's a successful surgery look like? What is post-op success look like? What does the next day look like? What does your rehab look like? All the way down the line. Imagine that over and over and over, and don't let anything else your mind. Visualization, my man. Manifest it in. It's the real deal.
As a reminder, one more time, tonight is Title Tuesday. Be sure to tune in to AEW Dynamite tonight on Tuesday for Title Tuesday. And don't miss tomorrow night when you would normally be watching Dynamite. Check out myworldpod.com. It's Double J and Friends. We're doing a Hurricane Helene relief fundraiser, if you will. All of the super chat donations will go to help relief, and we're going to have more information. We're going to have some surprises. But, Jeff, I don't know if you've seen, but as we've been recording this morning, they've revealed that we got another hurricane.
Cat 5.
Hit Tampa. They say it's a Cat 5 and will be the most devastating storm Tampa's seen in over 100 years. Jeez. They're saying 175-mile-an-hour winds. Goodness gracious. I don't know what to think of that, but I hope you guys will join us. Eric Green says, thank you guys for doing that. I had it relatively easy compared to what a lot of people are going through. Praying for them all. Buddy, we all are. If you're able to, jump on with us Wednesday night. Everybody, spread the word. Throw us a retweet. Throw us a like. Share the post. Let's raise some awareness. Let's raise some money. 100% of the proceeds from this event will go directly to the Hurricane Helene relief. And I know that there has been a lot of effort there to just get folks back to normal. And there is a long, hard road ahead of them. Every bit counts. We hope you'll make plans to join us. Instead of watching Dynamite on Wednesday night, jump on with us. It's myworldpod.com. Jeff, just freestyling here. No bad idea in a brainstorming session. Is that the famous oxblood chair you're sitting in right there? Do we know where that oxblood chair went? Is that the same one?
Oh, yeah. It's not even chirping. Look, like there for a while, I'm trying to make it make noises, but yeah, this is it, pal. Here.
Well, I was going to say maybe there's a way we can do something with that chair. That's the chair that TNA built. Or that's the chair that built TNA. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that, but
well, I'm just saying that's the same chair you had through all that shit, is it not?
Oh, yeah, buddy. I bet I've had umpteen conversations with the American Dream sitting in this chair. It's moved around. It was purchased. It was on Galton Road, Johnny Cash Boulevard. It went down to 209 10th Avenue South, Demumbrium, those TNA offices, and it made it back here, downstairs, yeah. It's been around a few blocks, pal. Yes, this is, gosh, Connie, bought in, I'm going to go February and March of 2002.
Over 22 years of wrestling history in that chair. My goodness. All right, boys and girls, make plans to join us. If you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell so you don't forget. We're going to be live answering your questions. There's no telling who's going to show up because, again, we're billing it as Double J and Friends. Hint, hint, wink, wink. You don't want to miss it. Be live, be a part, and let's do something nice. Let's help some folks. Let's raise some money for Hurricane Helene's Relief Fund. We'll see you sooner rather than later. How about Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central right here on My World.
Peace.
What would you do with 2 house payments? Tony Schiavone here to tell you about SaveWithConrad.com. When you refinance with Save with Conrad, you can do so with confidence, knowing not only will you get a great rate, but you will get to skip 2 house payments. You don't need perfect credit, and there's no money out of your pocket. Find out how we can help you skip 2 today at SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
SaveWithConrad.com.